On Good Friday, somewhere around 33 AD, Jesus of Nazareth, prophet to Islam and Judaism, the Christ and Savior to Christians, was crucified by the Romans in Jerusalem. Crucifixion was a particularly brutal and drawn-out process of execution, often reserved for dangerous criminals, ones that threatened the status quo. Here we list 10 notable cases where a person was crucified.
Note, in April of 2019, the government of Saudi Arabia announced the execution of 37 suspected terrorists, one of those executions coming in the form of crucifixion. Thus, it is logical to conclude that crucifixion is still a modern form of execution. Wow. Number 10. Inaros II, 454 BC. Also known as Inaros, this Egyptian was a rebel against the Persian occupiers. Allying himself with the Athenians, the Persians eventually won and captured Inaros, executing him by crucifixion. Records being what they were back then, historians debate whether Inaros was crucified or impaled. Note, Inaros I lived 200 years earlier and was also a rebel, this time against the Assyrians. Number 9. The Crucified Soldier, 1915. An unidentified Allied soldier during World War I, said to be a Canadian, was allegedly crucified with bayonets against a barn door by German troops. The story ran in British newspapers, which were then all over the world, and was used on American posters to sell war bonds, and also in an American propaganda film titled The Prussian Cur from 1918. Germany claimed the incident was false and just British propaganda. The British Parliament, though, asked for an investigation as to whether this was common German practice. Number 8. The 10,000 Martyrs, 9th century AD. According to Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox martyrology, 10,000 Roman soldiers who converted to Christianity were crucified in Armenia or Turkey by the Emperor Decius on Mount Ararat, the mountain where Noah is said to have landed his ark. Number 7. Julia of Corsica, 439 AD. A martyred saint, Julia was also reputedly a virgin and a slave that was crucified for refusing to honor pagan gods and renounce Christianity. Despite the descriptive name, she was supposedly of Carthaginian origin. Number 6. Bessus, also known as Artaxerxes V, 329 BC. Bessus seized the throne of Persia after the defeat of Darius III by Alexander the Great. Bessus led conspirators to kill Darius III and proclaimed himself King of Kings, and then attempted to mount resistance against the conquering Macedonians. Fearful Persians soon caught Bessus and turned him over to Alexander, who had him crucified. As with some of the others allegedly crucified, historians disagree as to the exact method of execution. Number 5. 26 Martyrs of Japan, 1597. After successfully converting perhaps 300,000 Japanese to Christianity, the Spanish and Portuguese missionaries were at odds, and the Japanese authorities decided to stamp out Christianity. In that atmosphere, 26 Japanese Christians were crucified in Nagasaki, later declared martyrs by the Catholic Church. These were not the only Japanese Christians martyred, but they were the first and the most famous. Number 4. Slave rebels during the Third Servile War, 71 BC. Known also as the Gladiator War or the War of Spartacus, this war was the rising up of the slaves against their Roman masters, led by Spartacus and other gladiators. When the rebellion was finally crushed, Crassus captured 6,000 remaining rebellious slaves and had them crucified, their bodies hanging on crosses along the road to Rome known as the Appian Way. Number 3. Andrew the Apostle, 1st century AD. Preaching his way from Jerusalem north to the Ukraine and Russia, Andrew ended up crucified in Greece at an unknown date. The oldest accounts say he was crucified on the type of cross Christ was crucified on, but somewhere along the way tradition changed, claiming that he was crucified on an X-shaped cross. Apparently spreading the Christian word was a dangerous thing to do in those days, and fellow apostles Philip and Bartholomew found themselves crucified upside down in what is now Turkey. Number 2. St. Peter the Apostle, 1st century AD. The designated successor to Jesus as head of the new church, Peter was said to be crucified by Emperor Nero in Rome, upside down at his own insistence because he believed he was unworthy to be crucified like Jesus. Number 1. Jesus Christ, circa 33 AD. Of course, Jesus is by far the most famous victim of crucifixion, as millions of crosses or crucifixes all over the world attest. The story of his crucifixion, aside from being described in the Gospels, is told in Passion plays performed each year all over the world and has been depicted in numerous movies, such as the Mel Gibson production starring Jim Caviezel, The Passion of the Christ, from 2004. A rather irreverent spoof of the life and execution of Jesus was made by the Monty Python comedy troupe in a film titled The Life of Brian from 1979. As a bonus, there is also a famous crucifixion scene in the movie Conan. Arnold Schwarzenegger portrayed the fictional character in Conan from 1982 with a memorable crucifixion scene.
As a question for my students and subscribers, do you think crucifixion is a justifiable form of punishment? Please let us know in the comments section below this video.
If you like this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated.